Good morning. I'll try that again. Good morning. Good morning. Welcome to the third annual Water Lily Women's Luncheon event to benefit the services of Stillwater Hospice. Thank you to each and every one of you for being here today and joining us on this special day to reflect and remember and recognize and celebrate each one of us for the roles that we have in caring and being cared for and serving as caregivers. I have been involved with Stillwater Hospice since 1994. My name's Melissa Long. My father died in their care. They were fantastic. I've told the story before how he was given a 2 to 6 month prognosis and he lived for almost 3 years. And they came and they kept coming, and it was amazing. I have served on their board of directors and the development committee, as well as attended special events to benefit Stillwater Hospice, and I understand the importance of caregiving. Most recently, because my mother passed away about 3 weeks ago, and she was in the care of Stillwater Hospice. And it was sort of a miracle how it happened. She was 94 years old, and I had been in Florida, and I had come back and forth to see her. And one time I was there, I just thought, you know what? I don't know, I'm just going to call hospice, because I know one of their slogans or mottos, for lack of a better word, is know us before you need us. And I talked to my mother about it, and she's like, I'm going to live to 100. And I said, I believe that. But another layer of care, okay? So the hospice person came out. She was wonderful. We got Mother signed up. She'd had a couple of little mini strokes throughout the past several years, but was doing fine. I got back on the plane. I flew down to Florida, and 3 days later, Mother had a stroke. And the fact that we had hospice lined up was nothing short of a miracle and such a gift to our family. My brothers were in awe of what they did for us and for my mom. And she died a week later in her own home, in her own bed, with all of us all around her. And I cannot express to you enough what a fantastic job, from the social workers to the chaplaincy to the nurses to everybody that you deal with. It just reminded me again, because it's been 31 years since we used them for my dad, but incredible. And know them before you need them. That is so, so important. It made all the difference for our family. So it does take a village, and you really want to have Stillwater Hospice in your village. I invite you to continue to enjoy your salads and one another's company, as the main course is set to be served in just a few minutes. And I'd like to invite Angie Fincannon, Vice Chair of the Stillwater Foundation Board, to please join me on the stage to provide the invocation for today's event. Angie.
Thank you, Melissa, and I'm just so sorry about your mother. So I know we're all sharing in that today. So good morning, everyone. And in the spirit of love and compassion, why don't we just take a moment together to pause in gratitude. Lord of all, we gather today as a community, united by compassion and purpose in support of the sacred mission of Stillwater Hospice. We give thanks for the hands that comfort, the hearts that serve, and the unwavering spirit of those who walk beside us, our loved ones, in life's most tender moments. Bless the work of Stillwater Hospice, for the peace it brings to patients, for the comfort they extend to our families, and for the dignity that is honored in every life that it touches. As we share this meal today, may the food nourish our bodies, may our fellowship today strengthen our bonds, and may our love and support today help carry forward the light and love that Stillwater Hospice brings to our community. Bless those in our care, those we hold tightly in our memories, and also those who selflessly give of themselves each and every day. And may our time together inspire deeper hope, deeper healing, and your humanity. Amen.
Please enjoy your lunch, and we'll be back.
Hello. Hello. Can everybody hear me? We're going to go ahead and get started. My name is Leslie Friedel, and I'm the CEO at Stillwater Hospice. I want to thank you all so much for coming to the 3rd annual Stillwater Women's Water Lily Luncheon. I'm so glad to see so many familiar faces and so many new ones, too. Your support for this gathering in our organization is so heartwarming. Today, I want to talk about a group of individuals who often go unnoticed, yet their contributions are invaluable. These are our family caregivers, those who stand by our loved ones during the most challenging times of their lives. They provide hands-on care, companionship, and support for those facing serious illness. If you're not a caregiver today, you will probably be one in the future. Currently in the United States, there are over 53 million unpaid family caregivers. More than 60% of family caregivers hold paid jobs as well. Over 41% of care recipients are older adults. And by 2050, there is a projected caregiver support ratio of 3-to-1. When a serious diagnosis is given, there is an outpouring of support for both the patient and the caregiver. Friends and family rally around, offering meals, prayers, and words of encouragement. This initial wave of support is heartwarming and much needed. However, as time goes on, this support often fades away, leading the caregiver to navigate the complexities of caring for a seriously ill person alone. The journey of caregiving is not about the physical task. It's an emotional and a mental marathon. Caregivers often put their needs aside and focus entirely on the well-being of their loved one. They become the unsung heroes, providing comfort, administering medication, and offering a shoulder to cry on. Yet as the days turn into weeks and months, that initial support they receive may dwindle. Many are left carrying the burden alone. Similarly, after the death of a loved one, surviving caregivers are showered with love and condolences. The immediate aftermath is filled with flowers, cards, and visits. But the days pass and the world moves on. And the caregiver is left to grapple with their grief and solitude. This is when they need us most, when the silence becomes deafening and the weight of the loss feels unbearable. We must remember that caregiving does not end with a diagnosis or even with the passing of a loved one. It is the continuous journey that requires ongoing support and compassion. We need to be there for our friends and loved ones who are caregivers, not just in the beginning, but through the entire process. This support is vital to helping our caregivers along their journey. Caregiver stress is a significant issue that affects many individuals who provide care for loved ones. These key statistics highlight the extent of this stress. The emotional stress. According to the National Institutes of Health, over 60% of caregivers report that caregiving has increased their levels of stress and worry. Female caregivers, in particular, experience higher levels of stress and anxiety compared to their male counterparts. Mental health is affected. 2/3 of unpaid caregivers for older adults reported at least one adverse mental health or behavioral health symptom in a recent survey by the American Psychological Association. This includes anxiety, depression, and substance use. More than 37% of caregivers report that caregiving has impacted their physical health, leading to increased feelings of physical stress. The time commitment. Many caregivers are sole providers of care, typically spending around 20 hours per week on caregiving duties. This significant time commitment can contribute to the overall stress and burden they experience. These statistics underscore the importance of providing continuous support to caregivers, not just during their initial stages of caregiving or after a loss, but throughout their entire journey. So how can we make a difference in the lives of caregivers? Here's a few simple yet impactful ideas. Stay connected. Regularly check in with caregivers. A simple phone call or text message can mean the world to someone who feels isolated. Offering practical help. Small gestures like running errands, cooking a meal, or sitting with the patient can provide such much-needed relief. Listening. Sometimes the best support we can offer is just a listening ear, allowing caregivers to express their feelings without judgment or advice. Be present. Continue to show up even after the initial wave of support has passed. Your ongoing presence can provide a sense of stability and comfort. Remember, your ongoing support can make a world of difference to a caregiver who may be feeling stressed or overwhelmed. Your kindness and understanding can provide them with strength they need to continue their important work. At Stillwater Hospice, we support caregivers through our wraparound services. We want you to know us before you need us. Our services provide a foundation of education, compassion, and guidance for individuals facing serious illnesses and those who care for them. For patients, our expert team offers comprehensive, personalized care that prioritizes comfort, dignity, and quality of life. Whether through pain management, symptom control, emotional and spiritual support, we walk alongside individuals and their loved ones during life's most challenging moments. For caregivers, we understand that caring for a loved one with a serious illness can be both deeply rewarding and incredibly exhausting. That's why we offer our patients respite care at our hospice home, giving their caregivers the chance to rest and recharge while their loved one receives 24/7 expert care in a peaceful, home-like setting. This temporary stay provides a much-needed break. Continuous caregiving without breaks can lead to stress and burnout. Respite care helps prevent exhaustion, allowing caregivers to return refreshed and better equipped to provide care. In addition, caregivers often have personal commitments such as work, family, obligations, and medical appointments. Respite care provides time to handle these responsibilities without worrying about their loved one's well-being. Knowing that a loved one is in the hands of our experienced hospice professionals at Hospice Home provides that peace of mind. Stillwater Hospice Home staff offers expert pain management, symptom control, emotional support, ensuring a continuity of care. Respite care is an essential part of hospice services, ensuring that both patient and their caregivers receive the support they need. No one should have to navigate this journey alone. Stillwater Hospice is here to support both patients and caregivers, offering relief, guidance, and comfort when it's needed most. I want to now provide an enormous thank you to our corporate and individual sponsors that made today possible. Each of these sponsor levels has a tie to nursing, the establishment of Hospice International, or to Stillwater Hospice's history. Please join me in recognizing the sponsors who helped make this event possible. Our Saunders sponsor, named after Dame Cecily Saunders, the individual credited for her role in the modern hospice movement. Clarkson Transportation. Clarkson is such a valued partner of Stillwater Hospice in so many ways. The compassion that Pam shows for our patients and their families is just absolutely tremendous. The Nightingale sponsor, named after Florence Nightingale, who is known for her role in modern nursing. This seems very timely as we celebrate Nurses Week this week, and I want to give a special thanks to all of the nurses in the room with us today. Our Nightingale sponsors are Three Rivers Federal Credit Union, Fort Wayne Medical Oncology and Hematology, Fort Wayne Metals, Jerry and Becky Henry, and LC Nature Park. Our Schatzter sponsors, named after Josephine Schatzter, our very first nurse: Advocare, Ambassador Enterprises, Burn Ready Mix St. Henry Tile Company, Corsica Technologies, D.O. McComb & Sons Funeral Homes, Donovan CPA, and Maintenance Management. Also, Schatzter sponsors Meyer, MKM Architecture and Design, Medpo Group, North Star Care Community, Porter Family Foundation, SDI, the Stinson Team, Sim Financial Advisors, and Taft Law Firm. Our Devlin sponsors, named after Isabel Devlin, the organization's first director, hired in 1923. You can see we are beyond excited to have 41 individuals and corporations who have joined us at this giving level. Let's give them all a round of applause. Thank you for your generosity and support of Stillwater Hospice's services and programs. I also want to thank our board of directors, Stillwater Hospice's foundation board, volunteers, and staff for making today possible. I want to express my deepest admiration for each of you. Life as caregivers is not easy, but is profoundly meaningful. Thank you for coming here today, and I would now like to introduce Leslie Ryrick, who will share her Stillwater story.
Good afternoon. I want to thank Stillwater Hospice for inviting me to speak today. It's an honor to stand before you, not just as a speaker, but as a woman who has lived through a lifetime of grief. I continue to live with grief today. It's a companion of mine. It has sat at my table for 45 years. It's rewritten my life. I've buried 2 infant daughters. I've said goodbye to both of my parents, 2 of my brothers, my sister. I lost my 20-year-old son. And not long ago, my best friend of 31 years died in her sleep. Now, these losses, they didn't come all at once. But over time, they've woven themselves into who I am. And through it all, I have learned that grief changes us. It can also shape how we lead, how we show up for others, how we create spaces where people are allowed just to be human. And that's what I want to talk to you about today. Because there are days when this grief just feels so overwhelming. Other days, I feel strangely disconnected from it, like I'm talking about someone in the third person. But it's not, it's my story, and I'm still here. Today, I want to share with you what has kept me going and what continues to give me hope, even in the hardest moments. Because you see, our grief never really leaves us, does it? It evolves, it changes, and over time, we learn how to carry it with us. And in carrying it with us, life is allowed to grow up around it again. Last year, I wrote a book called The Gifts of Grief: How 4 Decades of Loss Changed My Life. I didn't write it because I had all the answers. I wrote it because I needed to make space for my own story. Because as devastating as grief has been, it's also been my greatest teacher. Not one I would have ever chosen, but one that has shaped me into who I am today. You've each been gifted a copy of my book today, and inside are chapters about each person I have loved and I have lost. Their stories are the fabric of my own life. My greatest hope is that something in these pages will resonate with you on your own grief journey, and that it'll somehow bring you peace. Because you see, grief never asks for permission. It doesn't wait until we're ready for it to come. It just shows up. But it doesn't kill us. It doesn't even have the power to destroy us. But what really nearly broke me all those years ago wasn't my grief. It was the belief that I had to carry it all on my own. Because you see, we were never meant to grieve in isolation. We were never meant to grieve alone. Healing happens in community. It was the people who came and sat with me that allowed me to heal. Not with answers or advice, but simply with their presence. They're the ones that carried me through. They didn't try to fix me. They didn't change the subject so I wouldn't be sad. They just showed up. And that changed everything for me. So let me take you back to the beginning of my story. I was about 5 years old, and I was playing outside one day. And I noticed my mom in the garage leaning over a large black antique trunk. She was lifting out a small red leather purse and 2 tiny little bracelets, and I asked her, like any 5-year-old, what that was. She said to me, "These belong to your sister Sandy. She died when she was 5 years old." Now, I'd never met Sandy, but in that moment, I began to grieve her. In my book, I write, "I carry you with me wherever I go, even though we've never met each other yet." Have you ever grieved for someone that you've never even met? It's a different kind of grief. It's like a slow simmer underneath your heart. You carry it with you the rest of your life. Now, my mom had 5 boys after Sandy's death. Can you imagine that? 5 boys in a row? And then 15 years later, I would be born. I can't even imagine how excited she was the day I was born. We shared a unique connection. From the moment she opened that trunk, Sandy became part of my story too. I never stopped asking questions. I wanted to know everything about her, what she liked, what she sounded like, anything my mom could remember. While my brothers weren't especially interested in talking about her, I couldn't get enough. Looking back now, I realized my mom taught me how to carry grief without ever saying a word. She kept Sandy's things tucked away in that trunk for decades. Through giving birth to 5 more children, she never stopped loving her, and she never stopped grieving over her. That purse and those bracelets weren't just objects. They were a grief ritual for her. They were a reminder of her grief. She held on to her little girl's things and kept them tucked away until the day she died at 91 years old. Whenever I think about my mom, I'm always reminded of this quote that says, "The strongest person in the world is a grieving mother who gets up every morning and keeps on going." And that's how you could describe my mom. That day in our garage when I was 5 years old, my mother didn't realize it, but she was preparing me for my own grief journey later in life. I often think of the quote that says, "Grief comes in 2 parts. The first is our loss, and the second is the remaking of our lives." Years later, grief would find us again. On Thanksgiving Day in 1980, we lost my oldest brother at the age of 34 to a brain tumor. This loss shattered our family. He had served as a Marine in Vietnam, and he was exposed to Agent Orange, which we later found out was the source of his tumor. After the war, he came home, he married his college sweetheart, and he graduated from IU Law School. My brother was appointed the youngest judge ever in our state at 29 years old by Governor Otis Bowen. His 2 daughters were only 5 and 10 years old when he died. And it's been 45 years this November that we lost him. And I am so honored that his widow is with us here today. His oldest daughter also graduated from IU Law School. And her oldest son is now a senior at IU. So his legacy lives on 3 generations deep on that campus. He would now be the grandfather of 4 beautiful grandchildren that he never lived long enough to meet. The quote I use in the chapter dedicated to my brother is that the greatest use of a life is to spend it on something that will outlast it. and that was my brother's life. After he died, there were marriages, births, and all the events of life, but his absence was felt everywhere. Both of his daughters would eventually grow up and have families of their own. But I had become an old soul at 21 when he died. You see, there were no grief centers like there are now back then. There were no support groups. So I leaned on my college roommate who had lost her mom to cancer, and whether she knew it or not, she became my grief mentor. But grief changed me, and life moved forward. I married at 29 years old, and after 8 years of infertility that took its toll on that marriage, it ended. But then at the ripe old age of 39, I would remarry. And I found out I was pregnant just 1 month after my honeymoon. I was thrilled. But in my 7th month of pregnancy, I delivered a beautiful little girl who was just too small to survive. And I was devastated. But I still longed to become a mom. So 15 months later, I would give birth to another daughter, a healthy baby, or so we thought. 5 days after her birth, she began to show signs of distress, and we were rushed to the NICU at Vanderbilt Children's Hospital, where doctors discovered a rare heart defect. She underwent open heart surgery, but her little body was just too fragile, and we lost her at 10 days old. We buried her with her sister on a hill outside of Nashville, and I couldn't even breathe after these back-to-back losses. I was broken. I didn't want to go on. The grief was hard and it was deep, but I knew I needed help. So I started grief counseling, sometimes twice a week just to get through another day. One thing I learned back then is that grief demands to be felt. You cannot ignore your grief. You can push it down, but I'm here to tell you it's going to make its way back up. That's how grief works. So in 2003, I went through another divorce after the loss of my little girls. And I knew my parents were getting older. And as an only daughter, I knew it was time to move back to Indiana. So that's what I did. And I am beyond grateful for all the years and the wonderful memories I had with my parents during that time. But grief wasn't the end of my story, and neither was loneliness. 7 years after losing my girls, I would walk into a meeting and my whole life was about to change. I met a widower with 2 young children. And I'll just fast forward here and tell you that we were married the following summer in 2007. I adopted his 6-year-old daughter and his 10-year-old son. In fact, our daughter Hannah is the same age my oldest daughter would have been. So I felt like God had redeemed my life through this new family. And Keith and I understood each other's grief. We knew what it meant to lose the life that we thought we would have. But we also discovered that healing can take place in the second half of your life, and that love can still be found. Raising these 2 kids brought so much joy and purpose to my life. It didn't erase my losses, but it helped me build something new around them. We became a family, one that was shaped by grief, but also by love. As our new family began to find its rhythm, my parents' health started to decline quickly. I was constantly in motion, rushing from Austin's football games to Hannah's choir practices, doing school drop-offs in the morning, then turning around and heading to Fort Wayne to take my parents to all of their doctor's appointments. I was stretched thin to be present for my kids while also carrying the growing weight of taking care of both of my parents. It felt like I was holding 2 lives in my hands, one that was full of noise and activity, and the other one was quiet and fragile and fading. Then in January of 2011, my dad would die peacefully at the Stillwater Hospice home. I finally felt like someone had died in the right order. He and my mom were married 68 years, and they had a wonderful long life together. But a few months later, my mom would begin palliative care with Stillwater. Now, Dee, who was her nursing aide, would come 3 times a week to bathe her for 17 months. Those two became thick as thieves. We used to say, what happened in bath time stayed in bath time. Dee told Mom all of her secrets, and she kept every one of them. Then in November of 2013, my mom would be diagnosed with a glioblastoma brain tumor and given just a month or 2 to live. But my mom was stubborn. She had a few things she needed to get done at 91 years old before she died. So on June 17th, the same day my daughter died 14 years earlier, my mom passed away peacefully at her home. She always loved those babies, and I find so much comfort in knowing she's rocking my little girls once again. But I think the sweetest thing that happened during that time was right after she died. Dee had asked me to call her when it happened, and so I did. She said, "Give me 15 minutes and I'll be over." She walked into my mom's bedroom and she looked at me and she said, "I gave her her first bath, and it'll be my honor to give her her last." Watching Dee gently bathe my mother's body after death was one of the most sacred and holy things I have ever experienced. And I'm telling you, that is who Stillwater Hospice is. But that was a busy summer for us because, you see, my son was getting ready to go off to college. He'd chosen Wabash, which is one of the last 2 remaining all-male colleges left in our country. During his freshman year, he had 3 back-to-back-to-back football injuries. The third one took him by ambulance off the field and out of the game for the rest of the season. We had no idea how much these injuries would impact his mental health. On September 10th of 2016, which happens to be World Suicide Prevention and Awareness Day, our son Austin lost hope in a split second, and he lost his life. There has never been a loss that has impacted me greater than this one. Losing our son shattered our family, and it changed our life forever. But my husband and I are people of faith, and we knew within 24 hours of his death that we were not going to be silent. We knew if there was any part of our story that we could use to help other families, that we were going to use it. We just had no idea what that was going to look like, because suicide might have taken our son, but it did not take our hope. Rick Warren tells us that other people are going to find healing in your wounds. Your greatest life messages will come out of your deepest hurts. So for the past 9 years, I've traveled all over this nation, from New York to California, and yes, even Alaska, sharing Austin's story and listening to others share their story with me. Because we are not healed in isolation. Healing takes place in community. But my grief journey would continue. In 2018, my best friend of 31 years unexpectedly died in her sleep. She had been my anchor through so many of my storms, and losing her was like losing a part of myself. There's something unique about losing someone who's walked beside you through all your grief, and now you have to grieve their loss too. I still drive to our nail salon every other week, and I put my purse in the chair beside me because that would have been her chair. We used to get our pedicures together. But I know I'll see her again one day. Finally came the year 2020, the year that was hard on all of us. I lost my second oldest brother to acute myeloid leukemia. He was 69 years old, twice the age my oldest brother was. His death was heartbreaking, but my grief allowed me to see it through another lens. I was so grateful for his life. I was grateful he lived long enough to raise his 5 children and see his 14 grandchildren be born. And his legacy lives on in the business that his sons now run in his name here in Fort Wayne. So grief has become a constant companion in my life, but it's also been my greatest teacher. It's taught me how to be present, how to show up for people, how to be tender, how to carry the weight of loss with grace. Which is why it's so important for our family to support the Peggy F. Murphy Community-Wide Grief Center. They broke ground the week my mom died, and her final wishes were to donate the remainder of her estate to Stillwater. So as my husband and I attended their grand opening 10 years ago this month, we were honored to donate a grief counseling room named after both of my parents. I know how much my mom struggled with all of her grief throughout the years, and nothing would make her happier than to know she's been a small part of so many people healing. And her story and her strength are woven into the hope that we all get to share now. In fact, that's where I received my grief counseling after Austin died. I knew I wasn't going to be able to get through this on my own. And as our friend Maya Angelou says, there is no greater agony than bearing an untold story inside of you. So as I stand here today, I know that my grief will always be part of me, but it's also led me to a deeper understanding of what it means to be alive and to be connected. So to those of you who are grieving here today, let me just tell you this. You are not alone. There is so much love and support right here in this community for you. You don't have to carry it all by yourself. And to those of you who are supporting someone who's grieving, don't wait for the right words to show up. You're not going to be able to fix anything. Just show up, hold space, sit with them in the messy middle of their grief. Let them know they're not alone. Because your grief isn't a problem that needs to be solved. It's just evidence that you have loved someone worth missing. So remember this. In the end, it's really how we show up for each other that matters the most. Thank you so much for listening to my story today. It's been an honor to be here with you.
Hi, my name is Mary Shankster, and I serve as the Chief Development Officer for Stillwater Hospice. Typically, we have Nancy Stewart present the award to the recipient at the event, but I'm going to have a change of script here. As a reminder, the Water Lily Award recognizes an individual, foundation, or corporation who has made a significant contribution to Stillwater Hospice with their time, talents, or treasures. The award recipient will have shown a dedication to supporting women in their various seasons of caregiving, as well as being an ambassador for Stillwater Hospice's palliative hospice and grief support services. I want to tell you about this year's awards recipient. From the words of a dear friend of hers, he said, "One of the biggest compliments I can give her is that she is so much like her mother. Her mother instilled values, a strong work ethic, and emulated how to volunteer, give back, while also quietly running the show. She is driven, kind, knows how to get the job done, amongst so much more. Her dear friend that shared those words with me is Dr. Bob Swint. You see, her story with Stillwater Hospice starts back with Dr. Swint's late wife, Ruth Ann. Ruth Ann had been an RN at hospice home, and the supply closet had become really disheveled. And the best organizer that she knew was her dear friend, Nancy. Nancy became so much more than an organizer of supply closets, but it became her story with Stillwater Hospice. Nancy walked along the journey with Ruth Ann as Ruth Ann became diagnosed with cancer, and then was cared for at hospice home, the very place that she had cared for so many others. Nancy was a rock, not only for Ruth Ann, but for Dr. Swint too. Years later, after Ruth Ann passed, Dr. Swint and Nancy would co-chair the campaign that would make the Peggy F. Murphy Community Grief Center possible. They raised over $4 million to build the center from the ground up, and we will forever be grateful for her helping to lead the charge to make that possible. Nancy has gone on to chair our foundation board and now serves as the vice chair of our organizational board. If you ever want to learn how to run a meeting, to structure it with purpose and effectiveness, you just shadow Nancy Stewart for a day. Nancy has been pivotal in establishing our Employee Education Impact Fund, our branding and name change, nonprofit partnerships, and every strategic step we have made in the last 10 years. She knows the experience of caregiving too, through the care she provided to her parents, her friends, and her loved ones. In addition, she is a mother to 2 boys and a grandmother too. As a fellow mom of 3 boys, she gave me one of the most impactful pieces of parenting advice that I've ever had. When those boys want to fight, Mary, just let them. She was saying those words long before Mel Robbins because she knew the power of letting go and letting them get the energy out. That advice was freeing and may have led to some issues at preschool, but it's fun. Nancy has given back in so many ways to so many organizations, including board and volunteer positions at the Fort Wayne Public Art Commission, Indiana Arts Commission, Fort Wayne Museum of Art, Arts United, Fort Wayne Philharmonic, Canterbury School, Junior League of Fort Wayne, Purdue Fort Wayne, Trinity Episcopal Church, the Judicial Nominating Commission, and so many more. She has been instrumental in the creation of this event and has stood center stage to help guide the event from start to finish. She has also been a personal mentor, an example, and a friend to so many of us in this room. I am grateful to have the opportunity to learn from and to know Nancy. In planning this year's event, we could not go another year without providing this recognition to Nancy. We're grateful for your leadership, your guidance, and your service as a member of our board of directors. Will you please all join me in recognizing this year's award recipient, Nancy Stewart?
And so now what can I say, but you're a stinker. I have to say, I have certainly enjoyed every minute of my involvement with Stillwater Hospice. I love the people, I love the mission, and I love each of you for being here to support it. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Nancy. You were pivotal in making the Peggy F. Murphy Community Grief Center possible in 2015. It has been tremendous to see the impact that the center has been able to make on so many in our community. We have created a video that we are going to show you today that explains how the center has expanded our programming to reach many more who are grieving. We hope that you can learn a little more today about the services that we provide so that you, if you know someone in the community who is grieving, you can say, call the Peggy F. Murphy Community Grief Center, because you don't have to do this alone.
My dad's been gone 7 years this month, and my mom passed away in July.
When I was 17, I lost my mother to suicide.
My son, Dakota, who passed 4.5 years ago, he was the last of the 3 people closest to me.
10 years ago, the Peggy F. Murphy Community Grief Center opened its doors with one mission: to ensure that no one has to grieve alone. Since 2015, we've been a beacon of hope for those navigating loss, providing a safe space for healing, connection, and support, completely free of charge.
10 years ago, we saw a real need for the Peggy F. Murphy Community Grief Center. At the time, we didn't know exactly what we needed, but we saw that our hospice service was seeing a great expansion and we needed more space for what we were doing for our hospice program. But at the same time, we were also seeing a great need for what was happening in the community for adults that are dealing with grief.
In the time between the loss of my mom and my dad, I really outran my grief. And so when my dad died, that wasn't an option to run from that grief anymore. It was a sink or swim situation.
We have definitely been blessed to see the way in which grief support changes lives for those hurting in our community. It's absolutely inspiring to see the change from the first time that someone comes in for a counseling session until sessions, weeks, months later, however long, to have a sense of hope.
To be with other people that are grieving and to help me along in my journey is calming to me, and I'm just glad that I found it.
And so the Peggy F. Murphy Community Grief Center really embodies the mission of Stillwater Hospice by sharing that life's journey. People need somebody to show compassion and comfort, of course, but they also need that guidance of understanding what comes next in the grief journey, and we really feel like that's what we can offer.
It wasn't like a hopeful thing coming back to the grief center necessarily. It was a necessity of, I need to take care of myself. All the help laid the foundation for me to start setting boundaries, to talk to my friends, to ask and accept help.
We have 4 broad areas of support that we offer. The first is our individual counseling, and this is offered to our hospice families, as well as any adult in the community who's experienced loss due to death. We have ongoing support groups that individuals can attend as often as they'd like, and we do have groups that are focused on a specific type of loss or relationship. So we have 2 groups that are for survivors of suicide loss. We have 2 groups for women who've experienced the loss of their spouses. And we also offer grief-focused programming. We offer meditation and mindfulness, restorative yoga, art therapy.
Our grief hikes are intended to help people process their grief through movement in a group. This was inspired by my own hiking experience and processing grief, as well as just the knowledge of the healing components of nature.
And then we also do community outreach. So we provide presentations for different agencies in our community. We attend resource fairs, just really trying to provide that grief education piece.
The Community Grief Center has had such an impact over the last decade. We have served over 12,500 people through the Community Grief Center, any way that they've been touched. So whether they've come in here for an individual grief counseling session, through a grief group that they may have attended, through one of our grief programs, through a phone call of calling in to find out about services or reaching out to see about our library, people have just been able to connect with this center and connect with others that are going through the grieving process, and that impact cannot be measured.
I feel so connected at the grief center because of this shared experience of sorrow and moving ourselves through it together.
My hopes and goals for the Grief Center in the next decade is just continue to see the impact that the center has made from the previous decade and to see that grow and touch more people. The best tool is to share about a resource that's available to them, and that is the Peggy F. Murphy Community Grief Center.
It's one of the safest spaces for feelings and experiences that often are overlooked or intentionally avoided. If you're thinking about the Grief Center, absolutely come. It's one of the best decisions that I've ever made in my life.
As we celebrate 10 years of compassion and care, we remain committed to honoring life, fostering healing, and standing together in grief and hope. Here's to 10 years of healing and to many more ahead. Peggy Frank Murphy lived life with boundless energy and a deep love for her community. A devoted supporter of Fort Wayne and Stillwater Hospice, she believed in caring for others. Her legacy of generosity lives on through the Peggy F. Murphy Community Grief Center, helping those who go on living.
First of all, I want to thank Leslie Wyrick for sharing her story. There she goes. I grew up with Leslie, and I want to say, before you scoot out of here, every one of those Collier boys was a looker. I rode the bus with all of them, and congratulations to Nancy on your award. I know you were shocked. Nancy turned to me and said, I worked so hard on your presentation, on your introduction. They told her I was getting it. That should have been your first clue. I hope that throughout today's program you were able to learn more about how the services at Stillwater Hospice can be a resource for you today and, of course, in the future. As we near the end of our program, I hope you will take time to look at the pledge card found on your table. You'll see there are options to give through checks or online by texting Lily, that's L-I-L-Y, not like the name L-I-L-L-Y, which I always mess up. Text Lily to 50155, 50155. Gifts of every size make a difference to make Stillwater services available to our community. For example, $25 provides a hospitality basket for families at Hospice Home. $50 provides an American flag blanket to our veteran hospice patients. $150 provides an individual counseling session through the Peggy F. Murphy Community Grief Center. I hope that you will join me today in making a gift to support Stillwater Hospice and their services. You can see on the screen behind me that the frontline caregivers of Stillwater Hospice thank you for your support. We pour ourselves into so many other people and activities that at the end of the day, our cup can be empty. I hope that you can take the time to remember that to be able to care for someone else, you have to start by caring for yourself. As you leave our event today, I encourage you to hand any donations you would like to make to members of our staff located in the back of the conference room. Thank you so much for choosing to give back to Stillwater Hospice, and remember that you are the heart of Stillwater Hospice. In addition, please stop by some of our informational tables in the Miro lobby to learn about our services, meet some of our staff members, and learn about how you could volunteer with Stillwater Hospice. If you'd like to meet Leslie Wyrick or purchase additional copies of her book, you can meet her in the lobby as well. We thank you so much for attending today and hope you all have a wonderful afternoon and a safe journey home. Thank you.